Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first online expert talk series of the CIA CSO Forum. Uh, I'm really happy to invite Dr. Manish Gupta for this session. Welcome, Manish.
Thank you.
So the topic for the session today is going to be winning with AI for the business. I think AI has become a hot topic of today, where we have probably AI being discussed in our boardrooms, in our discussion forums with our customers and various other stakeholders. And we also in 2024 December, when we had the CII CSO conference, our topic was based on AI. And we did have a lot many speakers, expert speakers, and Manish was one of them who shared his perspectives around how AI can be tangibly used for creating some tangible use cases, uh, as well as use it for improvement of efficiency and productivity. So it was a very interesting session that we had. So that's what we felt, that as we are beginning this expert talk series, we begin with this session on AI, and we have Manish help us lead through this session. So before we begin, I'll just give a very quick introduction of Manish. Of course, you can read about him a lot in on LinkedIn as well, but I'll just still give a very quick introduction to give a background. Dr. Manish Gupta is among the top 10 data scientists in India. He holds more than 2 decades of experience in building and leading AI ML and data science teams across different industries. He's currently the founder and CEO of BizNeuro.ai. He earlier worked as a principal director of ML Science at Microsoft. And before that, he was also working with American Express. He's worked with Info Edge, Citibank, and many other organizations. He holds a PhD from IIT Delhi in machine learning and has more than 15 research publications and a lot of patents with a lot of citations. So I'm extremely happy that we have Manish today to help us through this interesting topic. So the way we'll, since we are beginning at around 3:08, I think we'll have around 30 to 40 minutes, Manish, where we can have you present some of the key aspects, and probably the last 10 to 15 minutes is what we'll open up for discussions and questions from the audience. Team, because Manish has a hard stop at 4, we may have to really be tight on our on a presentation and schedule timings. So without any further ado, over to you, Manish.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Shubho, for having this session as well as a quick introduction about me. And thanks everyone for joining. I know it's a Friday evening. I might be between something that you might already been planned, and I'm having a session here. But I will like to ensure that the timing that you are having it next 30, 40 minutes would be really interesting in terms of what winning with AI, because we talk about AI, but how the organizations can form their strategy and transformation, and how this winning with AI could be helpful for them. I think that's what I'm going to cover today. First of all, I think we all have a different perception about AI. Society thinks it could be more about robotic. Our friends might think in different way that we are just plugging the brain, but many people might think that we are sitting on the pile of money. But at the same time, all of us have a different perspective, but the AI has a lot of things to deliver in today's world. That's what I'm going to cover today. But before I start the AI application as well as the strategy and the transformation route for this AI, let me just kind of a different terms being used at different places. I just wanted to give sort of history around and what's the basic definition about that. See, AI is not a new term, first of all. It is being coined somewhere around 1960s, where being considered as a field of the computer science, which basically create intelligence. But in around 1990s, the machine learning started popping it up in terms of having as a subset of the AI, but trying to make predictions out of the data. In fact, I remember while I was doing my PhD from IIT Delhi back in 2003, like I built my first neural model at in 2003, well, as part of the DRDO as a scientist. Even the term of deep learning, machine learning was not that coined. That time, the term was more about data mining. But now the deep learning also started popping it up in terms of as a separate solutioning within the machine learning, which primarily use neural networks kind of a solution to process the data and make decisions. But you guys might be hearing a lot about Gen AI, generative AI. And that's the game changer for the AI in today's world, because it is providing kind of a ability of reasoning, ability to generate content, text, images from existing data sources. That's why the whole picture is getting started. Even the simple era of AI, you could see many people have actually talked about. It's a fundamental shift like the electricity, even the computer internet that we have seen in the past. As electricity has really augmented or replaced the labor through industrial automation in somewhere around 90s, like 1879, but the computer also help us in terms of efficiencies through some of those databases, spreadsheet, even enterprise softwares. Internet, we all know we are living that age for quite some time, which help us to in terms of communicate and efficiently. I might not have missed out the mobile here, but you could think about the same internet is powering the kind of mobile devices for us to communicate, for use those services on our one. Now, AI, which is getting being used, essentially it is important because it is trying to augment and replace human thinking, or I would rather say reasoning about it. And that's where it is trying to build a solution which is what AI, like what human usually do. And that's why the automation start happening into that space. You might heard about the term co-pilot. And the idea here is, in fact, I earlier previously working with Microsoft, then I was involved for some of the co-pilot activities. The improving productivity and augmenting human ingenuity with the AI-powered co-pilot, whether it's a GitHub co-pilot for writing the codes, whether it's a Power BI for dashboarding, even Power Apps, where you could have it. It can be used for writing, coding, data, web, app building, meeting, security, sales, work. You name anything. These kind of co-pilots can really make your life very, very productive. And that's why we're calling it as a new era of AI, which could be a co-pilot while I was part of the Microsoft. But essentially, what is happening? Why this AI shift is happening? Because we talked about a lot of things about AI. Right now, it's not about only automation. It's about something like an automation agents, which can perceive, reason, act, and learn, which can perceive the data, either internal, external, the way human does. It can analyze the data depending upon the objectives and execute actions using some of the tools, and finally learn as a feedback through reinforcement learning or some other mechanism of it. And that's where it can really reshape the product designs, operations, and decision making. And I'll be sharing a lot of examples with respect to how these are transforming the various industries, primarily finance, healthcare, retail, and e-commerce. I recently published my book, Building with AI, Building Application with AI Agents, which is available in Amazon. Last month, it got released worldwide. You may have a lot of interesting examples out there in that book too. But I'll try to cover something more for you. Let's first see a simple example where an engagement management agent has been created using a Copilot Studio, which is autonomous in nature, and how it is going to work. This is just, I'll not play the whole video, but at least a minute video just to give you about how these autonomous agents might work in a real world setting. Let's say the McKinsey is something that
With
they're talking
Copilot
about.
Studio, customers now have the power to build autonomous agents to drive AI-first business process. Let's take a look at how McKinsey & Company, one of the largest global management consultancies, is piloting a client service agent with these new Copilot Studio capabilities. Say a prospective McKinsey client sends an email requesting an engagement. As soon as the email is received, the agent gets to work extracting the relevant details. It then follows a series of steps, including verifying any previous engagements with this customer, validating the industry sector, summarizing the client needs, and identifying the appropriate McKinsey expert to meet with the client. It then writes and sends an email to the selected expert with the relevant client details, the agent effectively reasoning over the situation to come to a resolution. It's been given operational guidelines in Copilot Studio, and it can think and act within those guardrails to get the job done. Now let's go behind the scenes.
Okay. So I think as you could see in this example, engagement agents are automatically kind of comprehending the emails that they're receiving from the prospective clients, trying to link to their industry experts, and responding back also. So tons amount of the data and information can really get play automatically with these kind of agents. And you could see on the left-hand side, you could build agents at n number of areas, whether it's a service agents, whether it's a marketing agents, whether it's a project management agents. There are a lot of whatever you think that humans are doing it, the agents can do now that job. Okay. Sorry.
With Copilot Studio, customers now
Okay.
have the power
My-
to build
My,
autonomous
just a
agents.
second. I'll go back to this piece again.
With Copilot,
Okay. Now I'll talk more about the application of it, how these agents are essentially being applied across different places. That would give you the about. Before that, let's look at the kind of business impact is expected out of this agentic AI. In fact, the research has been published by Capgemini Research Institute. They were expecting around $450 billion of potential impact through the agentic AI by 2018. In fact, the similar numbers being quoted by Goldman Sachs, IDC, even MIT Research also. You could see the industry impacts could be plenty in terms of the economic activity and over the GDP also. But I like to also highlight which business categories that impact's going to come from and how. There are two major categories you could think about the agentic AI can provide in business impacts. One is the operational efficiency, and the second is about growth and innovation. If you talk about the operational efficiency, it can reduce your time to really go to the market in terms of their product testing, decision making. Think about you have an insurance company, you wanted to settle your insurance claims automatically, you may wanted to have your product launches, you wanted to have instant loan approval for a bank. These kind of processes, which usually take a lot of time, now are able to get processed very, very fast with respect to the AI. It can help you to improve the productivity, which can handle repetitive tasks or high volume tasks where a lot of intensive manual power is required. Here, whether it's a document review, content writing, ticketed, IT ticket pricing, automatic scheduling for executives, I think a lot of such activity can easily be enhanced through these agents. The improved accuracy and consistency is also another area where sometimes what happens, you have a lot of manual powers being sitting on the back end operations, but everybody has their own judgment to take those decisions. The consistency may not be there, or there could be a manual errors might also come up. But here you could have a systems in place in terms of whether onboarding, compliance checks and all, they can be very, very consistent and quite fast as well. That's why it can able to improve the operational efficiency. If you talk about the growth and innovations, it can accelerate the scientific discovery. Think about the R&D, the direct discovery, even some of the material simulations. These kind of easily can get accelerated with the help of the AI. The enable new products is also very important here because think about various new set of devices getting formed, support being also achieved through this AI, whether it's a delivery of drones, delivery through drones, wearable health monitors, even some of the AI-powered vehicles and all, as we know all about. The delivering 24/7 services, I think, is known to everybody in terms of their supports and engagement. Everybody, everywhere you see there's an activity about customer services that can also happen through this one. Now, having said that, I'll talk about more in terms of each and every functional area where this AI can get applied with some case study out there. Whether it's a marketing, whether it's about business development, whether it's about operations, I'll be going to give you one slide each to give you a seed of thoughts, and you could think about in your organizations where and how you could apply about it. Think about market. As we all have kind of experience towards the marketing, the precision, speed, and personalization is the key. In fact, nobody wants to really go back to those old days where everybody is seeing the same ad or same kind of reaching out. But it's all about me and myself in today's world. In fact, I use a very simple example. I have my family, my wife, and 2 kids. We are 4 people, but we are using 4 different toothpaste for different one. So that kind of personalization is happening even in every places. And here, it's not more about simple customer segment based insights. Rather, it has to be more real time intelligence, competitive intelligence, Dynamic pricing, you might have seen the prices are moving very, very fast, adjustment towards to the demand sensing. You could also have personalized marketing at scale. Look, the example which I'm quoting it here is very interesting example that they have actually published, Unilever, about their ice cream supply chain. They actually installed some of those devices, cameras and all within the freezer where the ice cream being stored, and that can give them a live stock about which ice cream are best selling, which are out of stock. They can have, they actually had it a better mechanism in terms of which ice cream should be on the shelf, which ice cream should be more on the uh, and which cannot be like, needed. And through that, they were able to increase their retail orders and sales by it's a 30% itself using this kind of technology. And they have published a case study out there somewhere in last year, in fact, August 2024. To think about a simple use case of computer vision being applied within the freeze, and but they were able to do that marketing and improvement to the sales using this kind of activity. The other examples in the business development where you could even from prospecting to the deal closers, you could use the AI agents basically. You could able to identify high value leads with some of the pattern recognitions. I was just giving examples previously about engagement agent where you're trying to get those prospects, even drafting their proposals, outreach, and their personalization, which items you need to propose to them. You could also have a follow-up meeting scheduled for them. And the case study I was just putting up here is something like Morgan Stanley Debrief. What essentially it does, they have a wealth management services, and there are a lot of calls being happening at their side, and the client meetings are happening. What they did essentially using this Morgan Stanley Debrief, which is essentially act as a note taker, summarizer, and first draft communicator to the client meeting, and that can be leveraged by 90% of their advisors in today. And that can really be again a lot of productivity enhancements to those advisors can happen even for business development using this AI kind of a technology. I was just giving some snippet of examples because you could able to comprehend that for your own use cases. Let's talk about the operations. Operations is also very, very heavily manpower industry or manpower where people are using those automations. But here it can provide you efficiency, accuracy, and autonomy. Think about you have a onboarding process, you have fraud detection, you have inventory optimizations. In fact, the organization that I formed is also more to do with the fraud prevention technology, where I've been using this agentic AI in order to automatically onboard or merchant acquisition. I'm working with some of the clients like American Express and PayPal, where they're trying to use this technology for their merchant acquisition and risk management purposes. But here, the idea is you could automate some of those processes out there. Similarly, you could have a workflow orchestrations across the departments. The example which I'm quoting is a very, very famous example of JP Morgan's coin, which call as basically contract intelligence kind of a system that they introduced. They have a lot of legal spending being done before that. But here, using this coin, they were able to comprehend various legal documents, contract details, which requires to have a lot of legal spending, but they were able to save more than 360,000 kind of hours of work by lawyers and loan officers using this kind of systems. And that became also one of the very popular use case, how you could able to comprehend documents, even the legal documents, financial documents, using the power of the AI. And that can really automate some of your backend process or operations, which are heavily being manpower today. Because this is the area where you will see lot of activity happening, because that's where the automation is going to lie further. The other area is customer experience. We all are experiencing this customer experience for quite some time. Everybody must have seen the chatbots and all. The good beauty of this one is they are always on. You don't need to wait for a working hours or a weekdays only. You can always reach out to them anytime. They have a context about your historical interactions. They don't need to really put you on hold for a minute and two and then to get a context. They always have that context in place, and they also have some personalized information about your products and services. And that's where it can easily handle their routine queries. But at the same time, they have been designed in such a way, if you have a complex cases, then they can easily escalate to the human too. So many of them have a human as an escalation matrix. And these are the couple of examples I quoted from one from the KLM, the Royal Dutch Airlines, that they are having it. They call it as the blue bot in their service families, which basically handle more than 50% inquiries today. Because many of the time people are essentially talking about their flight timing, scheduling, all those things which can easily be handled by those blue bots. And in fact, more than 16,000 cases per week being handled by these kind of agents. There's another example, which is Vodafone. They actually launched something called Toby, which handle more than a million daily conversations, and that helped them to have a first-time resolution lift. It's a more than 60%, and that's in Portugal that they have launched. In fact, these are some of the case studies. You yourself can go through it, get familiar towards your use cases, but they are pretty much that you could able to easily understand. In fact, I'll list down my the Biznure AI also, which is explainable adaptive fraud prevention technology that we are building. I formed this organization a month ago, but we have a demo product. If you want to get through it on the website, you can get through details of it. But in terms of the AI can also being used in product and innovation. It can generate n number of product ideas from prototypes. It can easily really have some kind of a prototype building plus to the actual testing too. And some of the market gaps analysis you could do and then able to fill that gap. You can create a multi-agent systems depending upon whatever the user behavior. So you can even simulate and test these prototypes using these agents. And that can really save a lot of time and energy, money in order to go to the prototype and launch. And that can be really reduce your build test cycles using this agentic AI also. There are a lot of coding agents like Cursor AI, GitHub Copilot agents that you could also leverage it for your innovations easily. The next example in the India context, you all know about Reliance Jio. They are actually using this AI very heavily in terms of their customer service and network operations. They're also providing AI tools to their field staff for their real-time network insights. In fact, they recently launched something like JioBrain, which basically democratized their AI, and they're building AI-ready data centers also. Anyway, I've written down my examples too, where we are building that collaborative agentic AI technologies adapted in this, also as one of the examples that I am just quoting it. Now, while I was talking about the functions, let's talk about the industries also. How these industries are using the AI. Before I get to the kind of strategy part of it, if you wanted to use AI, you wanted to win out of it, you want to transform it, the next section of the presentation is more about. But before that, let's talk about some of the industries like healthcare. Here, you could use it for diagnostic. Your reports and all can easily be analyzed. You could have a patient monitoring. You don't need to be having everybody to be in ICU. The patient signals, those can easily get monitored. The drug discovery is one of the various important area that is heavily being leveraged by the AI in healthcare by the AI. The personalized treatment is also very important, because many times the doctor could be very, very busy and they might pay very less attention to the one. But having there's something called AI Assist or Dex Copilot kind of thing, by even launched by Microsoft. I have written down a lot of details in the book about this. There is a separate chapter in the book about the real world application in AI. You will go through these example in detail in that book. But the idea here is you could have a kind of expected business impact is early warning detection, because sometimes it could be too late, especially diseases like cancers and all. But here you could enable this AI very, very fast identification of some of the critical health risks. You might heard about something like even during the COVID also, many people are using simple X-rays in order to predict whether they will be COVID signals or not, unlike going through the COVID test and all. So there are a lot of image processing goes into early detection piece that you could also use. The clinical burnout, that is also there are a lot of paperwork in the hospitals and all that can also get easily automated. Everywhere you go, they scan through these reports and all, which can easily be They handle a lot of workload by various support staffs too. And obviously, it could ultimately helps to your the patients as a population with the less cost in this. The next example in the finance industry, which is also the area that I spent quite good amount of time, starting from the algorithm trading to the risk management to the autonomous compliance. Compliance is a big headache for any of the financial institutions, but here also you could leverage the AI. Many people might say, oh, compliance has to be very, very heavily safeguarded by the people like who oversight those risk and all. But here also, in order to understand these compliance policies, in order to automate those compliance policies, continuously policy updates, you could use this AI tool. The personal financial planning is also something like the consumer financing is also very, very important. And many places you may see these kind of companies are also popping it up in terms of personalized financial planning too. So you could think about the expected impact written on the right hand side. They're very self-explanatory in terms of the risk management that the technology I'm building to, but they're also tailored to your need or an individual need, I would rather say. The other area is retail and e-commerce, where you could have a hyper personalization happening in the area of e-commerce, where you could understand the customer journey. You could also understand their negotiations, what usually take into the retail side while you are procuring some of those like kind of products and all. Even after sales supports can also be addressed through this in the retail and e-commerce space. So think about recommendation, we all know being there for quite some time, but it is now being handling by the AI agents, and the real-time price adaptation using dynamic pricing is also very popular examples of these agents out there. Depending upon the market condition, it can instantaneously change the pricing that is needed. Okay. Now, I covered my first section, which is more about AI application. But the next section is about how you build a strategy within your organization and how can you help or make a transformation within your organization. Because many of time we feel that AI is good for many things, but may not be like how in my organization, maybe traditional natures, how can I really build a strategy? How can I transform the culture, this and that? Some of these slides I'll be covering on that aspect. The first one is how you build a Gen AI or AI strategy in general. I've taken this slide from one of the Gartner report. They have published a papers about that. They were referring about their 4 pillars to the generative AI strategy. First one is the vision. Like you as an organization needs to have our enterprise goals, what benefit you are expecting from the AI, and how can you measure the success. That's why the vision is very, very important to start with your Gen AI or AI strategy, I would say. The second one is about value. In order to extract the values, you need to also remove some of the barriers that might be hindering in terms of driving those values. So you need to understand what are the organizational barriers, their different teams that can hinder the success, and action is required to be taken for removing those barriers. Third, which is also very important, while you are driving through the AI success, you need to also understand what are the risks behind it in terms of the regulatory, in terms of the reputational, in terms of the technology, or any other assessment you need to do before you end up going to the Gen AI strategy. Because sometimes everybody are very, very hyped about the AI and all. They are very, very inspired or motivated to use the AI without considering the downside or the risk of it. It is important to list down those risks upfront. The last priority is more about adoption. Where you want to use the AI, which are the use cases are most important for you to really use it. And do you have the kind of talent, feasibility, all those things are there with you or not? That's why adoption is also very important in terms of prioritization. The same components into different piece in terms of, as I mentioned, vision, more about goal, benefits, and success metrics. Value is more about you need to understand the business impacts, what kind of change management is needed, what kind of people and skill set you need in order to extract that value, what is the risk associated in terms of the regulatory reputation competencies. Adoptions in terms of you need to have a roadmap, which use cases need to have it, and what is the decision frameworks and governance framework that you need to apply. However, I usually say you. I usually say that first of all things are good, but at the same time, a very simple, basic approach. You need to think big, but start small, in order to really drive the business transformation within your organization. For example, you could create a Gen AI strategy. That's good to have. Fine. You could also align your leadership across the organization. Okay, this is the thing that you need to carry forward. That's fine. But and those some of the dimensions like capabilities, infra, talent, governance tools, all these things are required. Upgrade, that is also important. But as an organization, you cannot achieve everything at the same time. You need to start something which is very small, manageable. In that case, you need to start with some pilot projects. Many of the organizations already started with pilot projects. Uh, and I'll give you 6-step processes how you could initiate and be successful into your pilot project. Because I've seen in the industry, many of the pilot projects are dying because they are not being thought through well or they are not executed well. And sometimes there are a lot of issue happening because of the pilot projects and people are losing confidence. This shouldn't be the case. That shouldn't be the case. So there sometimes people feel like the AI is very, very highly intensive in terms of the infrastructures and the tools. I think that myth can also be overcome with the help of the some of the AI tools. Like you could use cloud and all. You could use out of the shelf some of the tools which are free of course or open source. Just should proven the idea. That's what you could do. Let me tell you about 6-step processes. How could you really drive the transformation? The very first is about identifying the high impact use cases. You need so the high impact use cases could be where there are a lot of manpower or manual efforts are there, and at the same time there's a data availability is there. Let's say there could be a high number of use. Think about a construction industry. It's a very intensive in terms of the labor and all, but it's not easy to implement the AI out there because the kind of a technology that requires you could use it AI for their design, all those kind of stuff, but still you need manpower to really put a brick on a wall. Fine. But here, some of the manual effort that you could overcome, for example, your operations I was talking about. There are plenty of the data in terms of the historical cases and all. You could able to learn from that. And these are the use cases that you could use it. And there could be a clear ROI you need to define. At the same time, how can you overcome or reduce the regulatory risk? And I actually found a very interesting AI canvas in order to prioritize which use cases you should be picking it up. I've shared the link also where you could have a kind of 4-quadrant kind of things where the left hand side is more about business, the right hand side is more about technical side of it. Top is more about it's easier to really establish, but it's harder to go for it. And you need to fill this the canvas and then decide which is the one you have more easier and more business side of the world. And that's why you could list down what would be the better use cases for or pilot you want to do it. You can say opportunity, why do I need it? Consumer side, who needs actually this model's output? Then you could form a strategy, why us, why not others? What are the policy changes are required, process changes are required? They are from the business side. From a technical side, you may want to have, okay, what is the solution that I need to have? For example, you have an opportunity to really automated insurance claim process. But the technology you might be needed in terms of OCR kind of technologies where you could process those PDFs and scan images easily. So that's a solution that you need. Then do you have the data? You might already have a lot of data points in your databases repository that you could easily plug in. Then do you need a model or can you use it out of the shelf, any models which exist on the fly? And what is the success criteria looks like? So you need to fill these things and that can help you to achieve. And some of the high impact use cases could fall usually in the support, onboarding, inventory, market automation. These kind of areas could be usually high impactful ones. Let's talk about the second thing. A lot of people talk about AI agents and all, but I would suggest use a modular scalable AI architecture because sometimes the technology are fast moving. You build something, tomorrow it may get obsolete. You may feel like, okay, I started with something, I invest too much time and energy into it, but after some time you see a lot of things are getting waste. It shouldn't be the case. If you use the modular scalable architectures, you could use which LLMs to be used. Sometimes LLMs are getting upgraded. LLMs nothing but large language models, which is something like ChatGPT, Gemini, and all. You could use multiple such of things so that even if one get obsolete or other one get refined, you could just plug a LLM out of the shell, which is of the latest one. And memory is something that you could also use. Like there are different kind of mechanisms you could use it, but at the same time, there's a various agentic AI frameworks that you could use in order to pilot with these frameworks, whether it's a AutoGen, LangGraph, or CrewAI, that can easily be plugged it in order to prototyping this one. Then most of the time, people talk about only AI. I would rather say that human in the loop should be there majority of the time to give the confidence, to give the explainability part of it. Ultimately, human are the one who might need to decide at a very high risk scenario. If it is a small risk scenario, anybody can use it, but for a high risk scenario, you may need to have that kind of human in the loop to give the confidence. Third aspects about there, you might say there are a lot of already existing systems. How can I integrate my AI system to them? You don't want to replace existing system because ultimately there you might be having your cash cows coming from the existing system. You cannot really replace them overnight and move to something innovative products which might not have proven yet. So how you integrate with your existing system in terms of some of the legacy systems or an API connected that you might need to have it. And there are different challenges you might face. Let's say you have poor data, then simply validation, normalizations kind of things can help you to fix that. You have a legacy APIs, you can write wrapper connectors out of it in order to plug that kind of a API data points to your new AI systems. You could have a latency issues, but you could use some of the caching and SLM, which is nothing but small language models. Caching is nothing but suppose you have a customer care process where same set of requests are keep coming to you. Then you may not want to use LLMs, which might be having latency issues. You could simply use cache this kind of a one and easily serve those needs without being calling an LLMs out of there. Sometimes you might have a failures into your system that you could retry and fall back using this kind of system. Fourth, which is one of the most important aspect to getting AI transformation is building the trust. I emphasize a lot in my book because without that, all the AI pilots going to fail if nobody trusts them. That's why sometimes you might have a biasness. We all know that these AI or these LLMs can hallucinate. How you overcome these hallucinations by introducing how much the creativity you need versus how much the factual information that you expect from the system to give. You could have various mechanisms to hallucinate, check the hallucination using something called RAG, which is can provide your domain knowledge informations, your policy documents to the systems, provide the context to the LLMs. You could also build some explanatory layers on top of it. At the same time, security is also important. I mentioned about right-hand side a snippet from my book, which talk about ethical concerns and mitigation strategy, because bias is something that might put your organizations at a reputational risk or legal risk. How you basically diversify your data, how you basically do those bias audits, how you build a multidisciplinary teams which can overcome these kind of biases that might get introduced while you're building or deploying your AI system. Transparency is also very important in terms of decision making, and you need to have an oversight and trust in order to have explainable AI. That's why the product that I'm building are explainable and adaptive in nature, because without explanations, all the fraud systems can fail, because you need to tell about the reasons why you being called flag, spam, or what. Otherwise, it becomes a black box. Nobody trusts them. Explanatory is very, very important. Communication is also be part of it in order to bring the transparency. There are other aspects about privacy, security, alignment that is required. I was emphasizing the mention about not only identifying the risk, but at the same time, you need to safeguard these risks with something like biased audits, explanatory dashboards, guardrails. You could put a guardrails also. You could have access controls. Who should be having access to these AI systems? And while you are designing it, privacy you could introduce. Your PI data should not go out, and things like that, or how much data you are okay to really put to the AI. There's something called MCP. which is kind of a connection where you could establish in a more secure fashion to talk to any of the AI agents. Then human oversight for the highest task is very, very important. Otherwise, you may have again a risk out there. The fifth one is about how you prepare your workforce. There's a lot of fear, a lot of phobia about that my job is at risk or I might get replaced, things like that. And that's one of the hindrance or one of the, I would say, the issue that you might face, that people are not supported to have that AI transformation within your organizations. But at the same time, you could upskill your employees. You could create some of the more roles, something like agent engineers, form designers, AI artists, even AI ops engineers, things like that, by upskilling them or introducing more roles out there. But at the same time, this is important to have a better communications to reduce the displacement fear. Otherwise, people might have a fear and they might not get into this one. See, whether you do it or not do it, the AI automation has to happen now, depending upon the way the technologies are booming it up. It's better to, that's why I'm saying winning with AI. If you don't use AI, you might have a chance of disruption within your industry. So someone else would do it. That's why it is important for you to take a lead and be responsive towards to the AI transformation out there. Okay. The next one, last one, which is very, very important. If you deploy any systems which are already in there, you need to continuously monitor and optimize them. There's something called agent ops, agent operations. Track the KPIs, task success, latency, costing. Otherwise, the things might go out of the roof in terms of costing, in terms of the latency. And you might have an issue that the customer might be facing a challenge and they're not able to reach out to you because you've deployed some AI bot in between. I think you need to track it, having a balance also in terms of, I mentioned about hallucination. Understand how the hallucination is happening. There are various mechanisms you could use the LLM evaluation, certain metrics like ROG, BELU, and all can help you do that, achieve that one. And importantly, you could also use something called CI/CD processes, which is like continuous improvement and continuous deployment kind of a practice, because AI is a very fast moving world. How you could be able to move faster with that is something, the how you deploy these solutions out there. Ultimately, this is my last slide. So AI native business wins, I would say. If you innovate faster, having a better operational efficiency and superior customer experience, I think that's better. The way you build sustainable competitive advantages is very, very important. Otherwise, you have a chance of disruption within your industry. But most importantly, you need to start now with a simple use case, which can be scalable in your industry, or be the first one who can lead the change. Don't wait for others to really go ahead to the race. Rather, you can be yourself the one. That's it from my side. And I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thanks a lot, Manish. Thank you so much. Manish, if you want, you could stop sharing so that
Sure.
everyone can see you, and we'll pin you as well.
Sure.
Okay. So great. So does anybody have any questions? You can please raise your hand and I'll call you out. Yeah. So K. Suryanarayanan, please go ahead. Please unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for the wonderful enlightening session, Mr. Mesh. It was very nice to see that, the different approaches for this agentic AI. One query for me is with regard to the information privacy, copyright, and other situations that are unfolding today. Because a lot of AI services have deep search and other things where they are trying to access information from other sources. And if we end up using them, there could be potential implications for us. So, in such scenario, how do we create a censorship, or how do we create a safe track for us to ensure that the sources referred by AI is authorized, authenticated sources and cited sources?
Okay. I'm glad you asked this question, because that is also one of the important topic. If you see the technology like Perplexity AI and all, you need to also understand there are two mechanisms that you could able to address this problem. First one is about any responses that you are getting it or any information that you are going to leverage it. Understand the citation of it, where it is coming from. In fact, if you use something like Perplexity API, AI APIs, you could have something called domain filters. So you could safeguard, even if you're building autonomous agents, you could provide the knowledge sources from where you want to extract the information. Unlike going to the publicly available data sources, which might kind of provide a censorship issue tomorrow for your use cases, you could use or anchor, I would say, your search within those specific knowledge, or I would say the domain or the website that you are interested to have it. So one is about citation, second is about domain filter, third is about you could also enable something called thinking process, because sometimes what happens, you raise a query, you get the response, but what is the intermediate steps? If you really go and validate some of the intermediate steps, you could able to understand whether there was an hallucination happening, whether there's a factual information happening, what are the steps being taken in order to provide a solution. I think these some of the mechanism that you could safeguard it, and I will always say that you could sometimes have an audit also in terms of what is being served through this one. I think that's where you could able to address it. I hope I'm able to answer your query, or I'm not sure which industry you are in, but I just given a generic answer, I believe.
Yeah, thank you. That gives somewhat a clarity so that we can start creating more boundaries around which the AI will work.
Yes, you could
Thank
definitely
you.
create a knowledge sources. In fact, if you use Copilot Studio for building your autonomous agents, you could define your knowledge sources or where you wanted to extract the information, or where you have a authenticate access to these kind of a data point. Otherwise, thing might go here and there. Yeah, I could see another question too. Yeah.
Yeah, Himanshu. Himanshu, you want to unmute yourself and ask the question?
Trying that on. Yeah. Good. Yeah, thanks. Hey, thanks, Manish. Thanks a lot for your talk. Very helpful. What I wanted to ask was again a very not industry specific question. The way we see since let's say the first AI model came in, right, from OpenAI, and after that you have multiple models coming in, different companies just going all into it, and primarily between US and China. All other countries are kind of all beyond that. It's not much really happening in terms of models. Uh, you have one company comes out of the model and which is like supposed to be significantly better than the rest of the lot, and then the other companies start catching up, and then probably the next one comes in after another 2-3 months or so, which tries to catch up with whatever the last model came in. Uh, where do you see, let's say, if you were to look at a crystal ball 3 years down the line, do you see this all getting commoditized, like one model be significantly better than any other model? Or do you think you'll actually have some winner coming out where you won't have much space for or any other player in this particular industry? How do you see it
Okay.
evolving the industry?
See, I think to answer your query, you're right. There are n number of models, LLM models, which are basically powering this industry. Some might be better in one use case, some might be better in other use cases. And down the line, 3 years from now, I think I might feel also they might be at par. They may not be very, very superior from one to another, because people might be over smart each other. But the way the success is going to define, in fact, I have written that into my book also, it's not about the model. Although we have seen a leap jump from GPT 3.5 to 4, there was significantly kind of a jump. In fact, there was a study done by deeplearning.ai, which is by Andrew Ng team, for a coding kind of a problem space, and they are evaluating using the human. There was around 48% accuracy by using GPT 3.5, but the moment GPT 4 came, it was around 67-68% accuracy. And maybe there are maybe models somewhere around 70%. But the way the agentic design patterns, which is something like reflection, tool use, planning, all those kind of a technology are popping it up. the way you use these models are much important than the model itself. That's going to evolve a lot. And using these kind of agentic design patterns, people are now able to achieve something around 96% accuracy for the same kind of data sets. So it's not about model later on, 3 years from the now. It's about how people are building solution on top of the AI, these models, and making it in a way that actually it outsmart the human being. In fact, the group of doctors can always outsmart than an individual doctor. And that's what the AI is going to really outsmart the doctors, for example, in a particular use case. So I would say the model may become irrelevant 3 years from the down the line. You don't care about the models anymore. Rather, you will care about how the model being getting used and executed in a way that can serving your need. Okay, so that's where.
So what
yeah,
you're saying is the models may get commoditized. There may not be
yes,
much difference between one versus another,
right,
but it's the application writers,
yes.
the top layers who are sitting on it, which is actually what is using those models and providing a solution where actually differentiation will come in.
Yes, absolutely.
And
That's the
those
way
will
you use it.
and those will be the non-FANG companies. Those will be the typical other small mid-size corporates,
Yeah.
possibly.
Like, for example, I'm building a Biz Neuro AI where I was talking to some of my friends who was in the American External Paper. They have a very large team, but the way I'm building it is based on the research-oriented application about it. I got this knowledge while I was writing the book, and that's why it is superior than what they are having in the house solution. I think it's more about how you build the solution versus how you basically use the underlying technology. I think that's where our technology itself. So think about you have a simple thread or textile, let's say cloth. The same thread can be used in n number of ways for different fashions and all. And you may have, let's say, the cloth coming from one range to another range by just simple same yarn being used across the places. It's something like that. You could think about that way. Okay.
Understood. Very helpful. Thanks, Manish.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Chandru?
Yeah. Hi, good evening. I have a doubt. See, when I write a prompt, okay, if I give the prompt today, I assume 10 o'clock, I'm getting an answer. If I am giving the same prompt after a day, or maybe one day later, I'm getting the answers are getting changed every day for the same prompt. So,
Right.
if that is the case, then how we will rely on this on the model, or do you have any research being done to make it more reliable in the coming years?
Sure. There's something called temperature. Well, you are using some, let's say, answer from that. The temperature is something but kind of a tool to address the creativity out of it. For example, if you put temperature 0, whatever the factual information is, you will get all the time the same answer. The moment you put temperature equal to 1, then it might give you the answers every time differently because there's more creativity involved. It's something like that. There's an expert who would give you the very, very right answer all the time, the same answer. But if you ask very generic questions, it might give you a different answers every time. So I think is the way the way you're using it is more important. The second piece is something like a RAG and all. You could always use something, your domain knowledge as a context, so that your answers are anchored towards your domain, unlike a generic answer that you may get it. I think that's the way you could probably may have a better answer, more deterministic answer. But in AI, even in the human thinking also, if you ask the same question to the same person, or even they have read about the book, they might give you some slightly different answers all the time. But directionally, if it is correct, it depends upon your use case also. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we are at the end of the hour, and Manish has got a hard stop at 4. So we would conclude the session here. And thanks a lot, Manish, for this wonderful session. I know that there is a lot all of us have and questions around AI. So depending upon the responses and the kind of questions we have, we may ask for a follow-up session, but I'll let you know as the responses come.
Okay.
But thanks a lot for this. It was really nice and interesting to know many of these facts on the AI transformation. So thank you so much,
Okay.
Manish.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.